is Randy Bowers-Payne, and I work for the City of Eugene within the Employee Resource Center as the division manager. Today, I am excited to speak with you about the future trends of the workforce and also talent. When we look to pre-pandemic workplace existence, we get an idea of what one can expect for the future of the workforce and talent. Admittedly, I don't have a magic 8-ball, I'm not psychic, and I can't look into a crystal ball to guarantee what the future of these two things holds for us. But what we know for sure is that ideas around well-being that began to emerge pre-pandemic have been cemented as important for the future of the workforce and also for the future of talent. So what does this mean for talent? For talent individuals, what this means is that it's a move beyond one-time wellness incentives for Fitbits and gym memberships and other nebulous wellness incentive ideas. The future of talent will require organizations to acknowledge whole person well-being. What this means is identity and experience acknowledgement for the future of talent. It means trauma-informed and impacted practices and awareness. It means understanding that the future of talent has different experiences through the pandemic, through racial reckoning, through the wildfires, financial insecurity, and on and on. It means that the future of talent will bring with it high value, hard to measure skills like emotional intelligence and self-awareness. It means that no longer can we just assume that the worker that we have during the workday is the person who is going to be delivering our services and goods for an innovative end product. The future of talent and workforce acknowledges the interplay and interdependence of community and productivity, economic vitality for organizations as well as individuals. It requires organizations to step outside of themselves and understand what individuals, whole people, whole workers are experiencing in the community. For years, we have been able to ignore how our talent and workforce experiences home and the community, and the future of the workplace and the future of talent no longer allows us to do that. It will require that for retention and recruitment, organizations are considering what the impact of community has on its workers. Do they experience a sense of belonging? Is there affordable housing? Do they have access to health care? Is it safe for them to go outside? Talent and workforce of the future is also going to require organizational structures, systems, and policies that acknowledge community experience related to identity. This may look like individualized employee assistance programs. It's going to look like support and services for myriad multi-generational care setups where we have aging workforce caring for aging parents while also taking care of children at home. We also have dual parents working in numbers we haven't seen before, single parents, and we have a workforce who has worked from home for a period of time and is going to expect organizational structures to acknowledge that. Finally, talent and the workforce of the future is looking for community and individual whole balance. So what this means is well-being is not an add-on, it's not just a thing that you do one time at work, it is how you do your work. It's psychological safety, it's making sure that employees who have been home for the last 12 months, who may be a little nervous about coming back to work because they haven't dealt with microaggressions or direct aggressions, are supported as they come back and have balance in order to take care of themselves and their families as they transition from individual, community, and historic trauma. It means balanced staffing and structures that reflect a global population, not just the community that we live in today, but the realities of a global world. And so you should see leadership structures that are emerging and look different, both physically and in experience than they have before. Finally, the flexibility that many of us have enjoyed and some of us have not been able to over the last 18 months is probably here to stay. We saw that before the pandemic, and this has certainly cemented the experience. Strengths-based and allowing people, trusting people and caring about them to do what they need at work and in the community is a trend that is here likely to stay. As we think about the future of talent and the workforce, we see two major things: true caring policies and practices reflective of a whole person, worker, organization, and community will result in economic vitality, vibrancy, and resiliency. Thank you.
Pandaria Technologies, In Vivo Biosystems, Kasana Health, Nature Quant, and Dune Sciences are just a handful of companies in our region that have direct ties to the University of Oregon. My name is Tim Schwartz, and I have recently joined the University of Oregon in a newly created position as a Director of Entrepreneurship and Economic Transformation. By way of example, let me show you a video that highlights one other extraordinarily interesting startup in our Eugene community.
My name is Avinash Bala. I'm a researcher in neuroscience and an instructor in biology at the University of Oregon. My research has to do with how the brain interprets the sounds around us. So I was trying to figure out a new way by which we could test hearing in barn owls. And we were trying to figure out in the lab how we could test their sensitivity to sound. And it turns out that every time we played a sound that was unexpected, the eyes would become brighter. And we realized that this was a very old discovery called the orienting response. We realized, yes, humans had an orienting response too. When something unexpected happens in our environment, our pupils dilate. And so I had this nebulous idea that we could use it to check hearing in babies. Here's a way, just by tracking its pupil size, we can tell whether or not the baby detected that change or heard that sound or saw that visual stimulus. So the next question was, is this something that can be developed into a clinical tool? Can this, in other words, be commercialized, or can this be translated from a research lab into the market? The market research that we did shows that there is actually a need for this test. Pediatric audiologists that we talk to are really eager to have another way to test hearing in babies that is based on behavior, not electrical responses from the brain, but is yet fast enough and easy enough that it can be administered in a short period of time. And here's a technology that is faster. It avoids the shortcomings in current methods. It doesn't require sedation. It doesn't require significant expertise. It's an objective way of determining hearing loss. Our goal is to contribute to early testing of babies so that we can diagnose hearing loss, so that by the time they get to 8 or 9 months, which is when speech and language development is happening, the babies are actually better equipped because their hearing loss has been addressed.
So these companies, my position, and the dedication and vision of our campus leadership, and most strikingly, the launch of the Night Campus, demonstrate the university's commitment to entrepreneurship and economic development. Now, we are undoubtedly experiencing the most disruptive time in generations, but it is entrepreneurs who see disruption as an opportunity. It is entrepreneurs who see opportunity in being disruptors, but they cannot do it alone. And the University of Oregon believes partnerships are key. Our success, the university's success, the region's success, the state's success are inextricably linked. I would add, though, that startup success has an upper limit, and that upper limit is based largely on an entrepreneur's access to a broad, deep, and ethical set of networks. And I'm talking about integrating seasoned executives, experienced entrepreneurs, and domain experts across business, technology, and science into our ecosystem, not just at the beginning, but across a continuum of learning, experiential opportunities and training, and of course, venture creation. Entrepreneurship is a contact sport. We must create collisions across students, faculty, alumni, community members, executives, entrepreneurs, investors, and service providers to enable and fuel innovation-centric entrepreneurship. Now, these companies I listed earlier are only a fraction of what the university has generated. And I believe that together, what the university has generated, what the community has generated, will only be a fraction of what's to come.
Good morning. My name is Siobhan Cancel, and I am the founder of Siobhan Solutions. I started Siobhan Solutions to assist local leaders in eradicating systemic racism through participation in listening sessions and education programs to build the necessary skills in equity, inclusion, and diversity development. So what does equity, inclusion, and diversity mean? There are many answers to that question. For the time allotted, we will skim over how these factor in to creating an inclusive workforce. I will say, in order to understand equity, inclusion, and diversity, you must first have awareness. Equity to me is where access meets empathy. Being aware that not everybody has the same access, but still caring even though it doesn't directly affect you. In this slide, you can see on one side, everybody has the same level, but they don't all have the same access. They can't all see over the fence to watch the game. If you look at the other side of the slide, you see that equitable steps have been taken to provide access to everyone so they can all see over the fence and watch the game. With equity, you have to meet people where they are and provide targeted assistance that gets them the level of access that they need. And as you can see in this slide, there's liberation. No barriers, no fences. That's what I like to think about when I consider creating an inclusive workforce. Also, diversity. Diversity is a heterogeneous mix. Basically, you hang out with people that are different from you. Diversity is not a single person. Diversity has to exist within a group. For example, if you have one woman in a group of all men, she does not make that group diverse. If anything, the one person who is different from the other people in the group are made to feel like a token, or even worse, an outsider. Diversity does not necessarily lead to inclusion. You can have a diverse workforce without having an inclusive one. So how do we create an inclusive workforce? That's the question of the day. And there are many answers to that. The most important factor, I believe, when creating an inclusive workforce is recognizing that no one person can create an inclusive workforce. You have to include the workforce. There's no policy or requirement that you can write that is going to make your workforce more inclusive. There's no quick fix. You have to make the commitment and be willing to put in the time. And if you're willing, then it starts with a plan. And the first step in that plan is recognizing that you are going to need everyone's participation in order to create an inclusive workforce. The second step in that plan is reviewing your business internally. And there are many ways to do that. I personally love demographics. I'm a numbers geek. And so you can take a look at how many women you have and in what positions they're in, how many people of color and what positions they are in, and so forth for all of the marginalized groups that you can think of. Once you have the data, compile it, review it, and see if there's any places you can make changes. Another great way is reaching out to the worker directly, either through a survey or group discussions, one-on-ones. Whatever the approach, just make sure that you are providing access to the marginalized groups. Some people may not feel comfortable sharing or may fear retaliation. Recognize this and provide additional avenues so they can feel safe sharing their feedback. It can be an anonymous survey. It can even be a peer-to-peer sort of channel. Transparency. Transparency is huge. Be open. Creating an inclusive workforce is not just good for the company, it's good for the individual workers as well. They're going to want to participate. So be transparent about your work and get them involved. And follow up, follow up, follow up. There's nothing like hearing about a project, getting excited about the project, participating in the project, and then nothing. So make sure you follow up with your people. a progress report, even if your progress is that we're still working on it. Keep in mind that an inclusive workforce means different things to different people. For some people, it may be being able to take a lunch at 3 o'clock so they can pick up their kid and take them to their after-school program. And for some, right now, it's working from home. This is a huge factor that companies are going to have to consider as we move forward. How do we provide equitable access to workers who don't even feel comfortable coming into the workplace? This is a subject that hits home for me. As you may be able to tell, my background's a little different than the other speakers today. And that is because I do not feel comfortable going out in public just yet. I am not fully vaccinated, and I have family members that are not vaccinated at all, and I do not want to put them at risk. So the Chamber provided equitable steps for me to be able to access this platform with the wonderful speakers that you are hearing here today. This may seem like a lot of work, and it is. This is just the beginning. You are going to have to commit if you expect to achieve this goal. Be intentional in your work and get constant feedback. Like I said, there has to be awareness before you can move forward with any meaningful work in equity, inclusion, and diversity.
Well, good morning, and thank you to everyone attending this economic summit. My name is Chris Chamron, and I am with the Oregon Broadband Office within the Oregon Business Development Department here today to talk with you about broadband. With each passing year, broadband telecommunications is increasingly viewed as essential infrastructure. The internet has emerged as the global platform for communication, business, government, education, healthcare, energy management, information storage, distribution, public safety, and entertainment. It has grown from use by less than 1% of the world's population in 1995, just 26 years ago, when it was commercialized as the World Wide Web, to use by over 50% of the world's population this year, with over 3.8 billion users. Broadband is now essential service and infrastructure. It's essential for businesses of any size that want to be a traded sector business and want to be competitive and effectively interact with their suppliers and customers. For governments that want to be responsive to the needs of citizens, support civic engagement, and promote information and services in a way that constituents want to receive them. Essential for schools that want to utilize digital course content and distance learning resources to teach students, communicate with and engage parents and professionally develop staff. Essential for libraries that want to provide local community access to the information resources of the world, and to provide access to members of the local community that do not have access in their homes. Essential for power utilities that wish to use smart grid features and enable energy management functions and services, and for first responders that want to access video, text, and image data in real time, for public safety, for healthcare providers that want to provide a full range of clinical services to patients where they live, and for agricultural producers that want to use smart precision agriculture technologies and applications. Broadband telecommunications may be viewed as a meta infrastructure in that it adds and enhances other types of infrastructure, making them better and more efficient with greater capabilities. Power grids, transportation systems, water and wastewater systems are all enhanced by the communications, monitoring, command and control, and service countries that are enabled by broadband telecommunications. I like the theme of the summit today, Carpe the Chaos. 2020 was an extraordinarily challenging year due to the hugely disruptive COVID-19 pandemic. It has impacted every sector of our economy and almost every aspect of our professional and personal lives, and the impact on broadband has been profound. Social and physical distancing have been our primary strategies to fight and control the spread of the COVID infections prior to the vaccine. Oregon and the nation have been directed and advised and asked to avoid contact with others, avoid groups, avoid public places by working from home, attending school from home, seeking healthcare from home, maintaining friend and family relationships from home, shopping from home, entertaining ourselves from home, all requiring broadband. Our strategic responses to the pandemic have been relying on telework, telehealth, distance learning, and social media, all forms of telecommunications. And of course, telecommunication itself literally means communication at a distance. The demand for and utilization of broadband telecommunications spiked. Traffic on career networks dramatically increased by 51%. The average prescriber usage increased by 40%, and patterns of use have changed. Overall, networks perform very well, having already been engineered for periods of peak demand. However, those peak demand periods have now changed. They're longer and more sustained. There have been long-established growth trends of the internet as a global platform for communication, business, government, and education, and the pandemic has been a hyper-accelerator for broadband public policy, applications, adoption, utilization, and infrastructure deployment. It has resulted in years of adoption and utilization within a period of months. Carpe the chaos. In Oregon, the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the local and state government interest in taking action to address the continuing digital divide and the challenges of broadband connectivity in rural areas and for underserved populations has been overwhelming. The pandemic has created a new sense of understanding, urgency, and commitment to address the long-standing pre-pandemic challenges of the digital divide. And the digital divide continues to exist in Oregon and may well be contributing to the economic divide that exists between urban and rural areas of our state. The impacts of the pandemic on business and education and healthcare, et cetera, they're long-term. When the pandemic eventually ends, we will not be returning to January 2020. The forced adoption of telework, telehealth, distance learning, and cloud-based network tele-applications of all types has been a proof of concept for many organizations, institutions, leaders, and policymakers that had previously resisted them. Going forward, we need to develop strategic plans, organizational structures, methods of operation that integrate broadband-enabled applications in order to function successfully in a changed world, the new normal. Thank you again for attending today.